I love reading.
Oh, look how many books I've got. I must be clever. Yeah? Well, let's have a look at some of these books, yeah? Let's see how really great they are.
No, Jeremy, don't manhandle the books.
My top 10 list of the books that I would like to read in 2023. Well, recently I've been highlighting the 10 books I would like to read for the next year. Usually it is books that have been sitting on the shelf for quite a long time that I'm making a point of saying, this year, those books are finally going to get read. All right, Grant, would you shut up and show us the books? All right, they're over there. You can see them. If you have been watching my channel, you know that I have recently become a fanatic of unread Balzac. 2 years ago, I read Eugène Grandet, blew me away. Last year, I read Black Sheep. It's better than anything you see in the cinema. It's better than most of the stuff you see on the television. This year, I'm going to be reading Cousin Bette. I'm going to be reading 2 Balzac this year because, well, first of all, Balzac wrote a lot. He has this huge body of literature known as the Comédie Humaine, the human comedy. Even though I try not to read the same author twice in 1 year, I think with Balzac, if you want to get through the better portion of it, I'll be reading 2 this year. This is the only one I've got with me at the moment, and I don't know what the other one's going to be, but I can't wait. Balzac, every single time, the best stuff. 200-year-old literature, nothing today has got anything on this. Number 2, one of my other obsessions is Japanese literature. The Makioka Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki. I have to admit, I take a deep breath when it starts off with a bit of a family tree. But that's the thing with this novel. In Osaka, in the years immediately before World War II, some shit was happening in Japan before World War II. 4 aristocratic women try to preserve a way of life that is vanishing. As told by Junichiro Tanizaki, the story of the Makioka sisters forms what is arguably the greatest Japanese novel of the 20th century. Well, a poignant yet unsparing portrait of a family and an entire society sliding into the abyss of modernity. My goodness, you went a bit overboard there, didn't you? Sliding into the abyss of modernity. No, that's pretty good. So that's a big one. That's 530 pages. But I love Japanese literature. Maybe because it is a bit alien, and perhaps when Japanese people read American literature, they find it a bit... Can you imagine somebody in Japan reading Faulkner or even Margaret Lawrence? If a Japanese young person today read the Manawaka series, like what they would make of that. You know, it's not too deviant. I mean, it is based on the precepts of society. I guess I should just admit, I like books where people are having extramarital affairs. Like somehow that just cheers me up every time. Number 3, where we went? We went from France to Japan. Where are we going now? I don't know why I always think Germany. Well, because he's got a German name. Theodore Dreiser, the American writer, not the German writer. Sister Carrie.
Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser. The look on her face was one of disappointment. That's good, is it? What's good about that?
Oh man, this has been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. I've only read one Dreiser, and that is An American Tragedy. I'll talk about that at another time in another video. I'm looking forward to this one. 460 pages. It's a bit of a weird edition. Oh yeah, a bit musty. That's okay. $4. For $3 a month, you could support me and this channel on Patreon. There's a link below. Please click on my link. And every week I write a little weekly blog about the frustrations in my life, which are mild and hopefully a bit entertaining. Theodore Dreiser, Sister Carrie. I'm going to read that this year. Back to France. I have been vocal in my love of Balzac recently. Several people have said to me, well, Mr. Balzac fan, have you heard of Zola? And I thought, well, I have heard of Zola through other authors. Like Zola is a name that appears. I think he appears in Hemingway, certainly appears in Tolstoy. People mention Zola. Somehow, I've never read any Emile Zola, and I think it's because his surname begins with a Z. And by the time I get to about T in the bookstore, I find that I'm a bit exhausted, which is probably why I don't read too much John Updike. It's why it took me such a long time to discover Richard Yates. I've never, ever read a book by Emile Zola. Similar to Balzac, he was very prolific, and he wrote a series of novels called the Macarte. See how terrible I am at French. Rougon Macarte series. The thing about that RM series, it was written as a series, is 20 novels, and I feel compelled to read them from number 1 to number 20. And this, I believe, is something like number 16, but this is the only one I found in the used bookstore. You see, this is kind of beaten up. $2, come on. I'm going to try to find the first one in the, I've got to learn how to pronounce that. I'm going to try to find the first one in the series and read that one first. I might read this one, and because it's number 16, just to get a taste of the Zola style, and then come back to it. But I would like to read it in sequence, because I think that's the good way to do it. But I'm very excited about Zola, because everybody who has heard me rave about Balzac said, you've got to read Zola also, because it's just as good, which is extraordinarily high praise. And now to Russia. Oblomov by Ivan Goncharov. This year I read Anna Karenina, and it just reminded me Russian literature is something that really deserves all the recognition and more that it gets. It reminded me more poignantly that I should be reading more Russian literature, because it is a fountain of emotion. Not so much the action. The action is there, the action is present, but it's the emotion that drives it, which is almost in some ways opposite of the North American style where the action drives it. In European literature, and specifically Russian literature, it feels like the emotions are driving the scenes, not the actions. The actions provoke the emotions, which go on to drive the scenes. In American literature, and Hemingway, of course, his influence, action, 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 action. I prefer that European style. There's my Russian literature for the year. 460. I don't know why every time I do one of these lists, it just happens that I've chosen the biggest books. Probably because the books I'm neglecting and procrastinating tend to be the big fat ones. Okay, drink a little beer for this one. Haruki Murakami, Kafka on the Shore. Haruki Murakami wrote Norwegian Wood. And I love that, because it felt like a very personal novel. It felt like a very coming of age novel. I thought it was great. And I understood why Murakami was such a big name in literature. And then I read The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, and it was not very good. Not very good. It was overwritten. I don't know if the translation was poor, but it was just not very good, and I did not enjoy reading it. And the fantastic elements were stupid. Like, as soon as you introduce those fantastic elements, you could do anything. And you can have any weird contrivance you like to manufacture the ending. If you've allowed those fantastic astral projection and bringing things back from the astral plane bullshit, then you could do anything you want to make the ending anything you want. That's why I don't like fantasy, because I hate dragons. Hate dragons. Oh, how do we kill the dragon? Well, we need the silver arrow. Where do we get the silver arrow? Oh, it's under the mountain of nightmares. Oh, how do we get through there? Well, you've got to hold the goblet of truth. How do we get that? Well, I know a guy who heard about a gnome who lived under a tulip who once drank from the goblet of truth. It's all such nonsense. We've got a war in Ukraine. Russian has invaded Ukraine. People are dying in the thousands, and you're worried about a dragon? I'm not worried about a dragon. I'm worried about nuclear war. I'm worried about kidnapping to supply bodies for the sex trade. I'm worried about those things. I'm worried about the environment. Take your dragon and fuck it up your ass. My. So I'm going to read Kafka on the Shore, and I will make my final decision about Murakami. That decision will be good or bad, or I need to read more. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This beautiful edition was sent to me by one of my patrons on Patreon. So not only does he support me every month with a very kind and generous donation, but also sent me this lovely book. Look, gold. And I'll be happy to read it. I've never read Wuthering Heights. It is another gross lapse in my reading credentials, but I will read it this year, and I would like to especially thank Jack for sending it to me. Thank you, Jack. I'm going to read it. I guess you like it because you sent it to me, or I don't know, you were just in a generous mood. I sometimes get those myself. I was kind of delaying it a little bit because I'm at university for studying literature, and I thought maybe it would pop up on one of my courses. You got to read the old stuff, you got to read the new stuff, you got to read everything. God damn it. It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. This is a book that gets mentioned quite a lot here and there. It's something political. I think this is a good time to read this book. And sometimes I get really afraid and paranoid. I occasionally think that we are on the brink of calamity. And I've got to read these books while there's still time, while we haven't, degenerated into barbarism. It Can't Happen Here is the only one of Sinclair Lewis's later novels to match the power of Main Street, Babbitt, and Aerosmith. a cautionary tale about the fragility of democracy. It is an alarming, eerily timeless look at how fascism could take hold in America. Written during the Great Depression, wow, when the country was largely oblivious to Hitler's aggression, it juxtaposed the sharp political satire with the chillingly realistic rise of a president who becomes a dictator to save the nation from welfare cheats, sex, crime, and a liberal press. Called A Message to Thinking Americans. It was published in 1935. Shockingly prescient novel that remains fresh and contemporary as today's news. Very political, dictatorship controlling the public. If I tell you, I make the video that I will read these books, I will read them out of a peculiar, I don't know what it is, inside me, obligation that if I say I will do something, I will do it. You can tell how happy I am for this one. Lawrence Sterne, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy. Again, it's like on every list, everywhere, of the greatest literatures of all time. No one description will fit this strange, eccentric, endlessly complex, I don't like that, endlessly complex masterpiece. It is a novel about writing a novel in which the invented world is as much infused with wit and genius as the theme of inventing it. It is a joyful celebration of the infinite possibilities of the art of fiction and a wry demonstration of its limitations. It is also, in Christopher Rick's words, the greatest shaggy dog story in the language. It's just one of those enormous old books that wildly celebrated, and I hope I enjoy it. I'm expecting it to be quite funny, witty, satirical. It's a little bit hard to muster the enthusiasm for this one, but 2023, it's time. 658 pages. And I've saved the best, and I've saved the strangest one for last. The one that I don't think anyone's heard of. Like if you write back to me, if you leave a comment below in the comments, say, oh, I know all about that. Everybody knows about that book. I'm doubtful. I'll tell you that it comes from New Zealand. And I didn't even think they wrote books in New Zealand. As far as New Zealand goes, there is the Kiwi and there is the Flight of the Conchords. And that's it. That's all I know about the country. And I think they had like a really smoking hot prime minister there as well. Carrie, Hulme, The Bone People. How the hell did I find this book? Well, this novel won the Booker Prize in 1985. The Booker Prize, I guess if you're a literature lover, you're familiar with the Booker Prize. This won the Booker. I don't know anything about it. Nothing at all, except that it's from New Zealand and it is concerned with the indigenous population of New Zealand, which is a very prescient subject matter for a Canadian person, where we are hearing more and more about the shameful treatment about the indigenous people of Canada and the things that they have had to go through and the things that they are still going through today. So I'm looking forward to this one. Set on the harsh South Island beaches of New Zealand, bound in Maori myth and entwined with Christian symbols, Miss Hulme's provocative novel summons power with words. As a conjurer's spell, she casts her magic on three fiercely unique characters, but reminds us that we, like them, are nothing more than people, and that in a sense we are all cannibals, compelled to consume the gift of love with demands for perfection. My goodness. 450 pages. Do you think next year I might choose some short books for my list? I do hope. I've had this one for a while. I was ecstatic to discover it there, neglected on a shelf in a used bookstore, because it's somehow the title stuck in my mind, The Bone People. When I saw this banner, reminding me where it came from. Oh yeah, Booker Prize, winner, Booker winner. Snapped it up for like $1. Like it's never been read. The pages are sharp. I think it's going to be a challenge to read this one. I am up for it. So that is the books, the top 10 books that I'm going to read in 2023, or I will try to. I may not read them all. I'll do my best. I think I will read them all. I don't know. I have this obsessive compulsive, like if I say it, I'll do it. I've said it, I'll read them, which is why I make these videos. I'll see if I can provide a link below to Amazon. If you want to buy some of these books, you can click on my link and go to Amazon and buy them, and I'll get like a tiny little fraction of the money you spend on Amazon. And if you follow that link and you decide not to buy the book, but you decide to buy something else quite expensive, like windshield wiper blades, or like a new Dyson air purifier system or something expensive like agricultural tools for your garden, I'll still get a little piece of that money you spend, and I would appreciate that quite a lot. And it makes it easy for you, because these books are really hard to come by. So you just click on the link and go to Amazon, you buy them, you are helping me. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Grant. This is Grant Loves Books. I used to wear this tie when I was a waiter, and it still has some food stains on it. I was in Europe for 16 years, and I've been living in Canada for 6 years. That's 22 years, so more like 25 years ago. 25 years ago. This tie is older than the students that I am attending university with, my classmates, the children of the future. It's a shame that they're so... Thank you very much for watching. I hope you will make a 2023 reading list and try to read those books that have been sitting on the shelf that have maybe you've been putting off. Do your best. Make your own list. You can leave it for me down in the comments, and next year, tell me how you did. All right, thanks a lot. Take care. Cautionary tale about the fragility of democracy. It is an alarming, eerily timeless look at how God damn it, I was so good with all those other words, and then fascism got me. I just do my thing. It's my channel. It's Grant Loves Books.